Welcome to another episode of Three Bozos Podcast, minus one bozo again. We got me, Wizane the Pizain, and we got Brooksy Boy. What's going on, Brooks?
Hey, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but we are expecting Avi to get here at some point. But in the meantime, it's just a two-man crew running things and linking back up once again. By the way, I noticed you were when we were off the air. You mentioned getting up and grabbing a drink. Is a scotch going with the scotch again? Like I heard on Pizane's podcast earlier this week.
As Meatloaf did say, 2 out of 3 isn't bad or is not bad. And to answer your question, no, I ran out of scotch. I had 2 of those earlier. I have moved on to a gin and tonic. Brooks and I are on video right now, so I got my nice metal cup. If I had some ginger beers, I'd be making a what's it called?
Moscow Mules.
Yes, I would be making the Moscow Mule. I've had a few drinks tonight. I've had the 2 scotches. I've had my gin and tonic. I'm working on. I had a couple glasses of wine. The wife is out of town. She is at a wedding in the southern tip penis part of Illinois that is closer to Kentucky than it is Illinois. Like, you think Illinois, you think Chicago, right?
Yeah, which is way up north, the very northern tip of Illinois, right by Lake Michigan.
Yeah, she's more in like fuck your sister, Kentucky. You know, she's like right next to that.
So, yeah, they're basically from what I've heard about Illinois. Like one of my old coworker friends from my last job that I worked in Tampa was from Illinois originally, and he said Illinois is basically Chicago and a shitload of farmland. Is like the rest of the state is all farmland. So
right.
that sounds your description sounds pretty accurate as well.
Yeah. She's been sending me pictures and everything, and yeah, they like dolled her up in makeup and everything because she's a maid of honor. So they dolled her up they dolled her up in makeup and everything, and yeah, she was looking great. She's taking pictures, you know, and then of course she does this thing where she like I don't even know how do you describe it. You know, I'll show you visually, Brooks, and then you describe it. She'll send me a picture like this. How do you describe that for our listeners?
Basically, like if you were to tilt your camera down and then like look down, it's kind of like that. Just imagine that visual.
Yeah, like everyone can give themselves like a double chin if they look down, and that's what she does.
Exactly.
On purpose, she does that. So there she is, looking all dolled up with her pretty eye makeup, and then her, you know, goofy ass picture. But you know what I've realized, man? I miss her. I see her every day. You know, you live with somebody, and everybody gets kind of, you know, you have your quirks, you know, your separate things you do, and it can be a little annoying when those things clash. So it's like when you get a break for like, you know, a day, you're like, oh, okay, that's nice, but man, it's been a day and a half, and I'm just like, fuck, what do I do with myself? You know, it's like I'm like, kind of depressed, you know. I'm sitting here by myself getting drunk.
Yeah, that's married life, man. Because I can tell you, you know, sometimes even like the closest of spouses sometimes need like a little bit of a break here and there from each other, you know, with different hobbies or different things. Like, you know, maybe going out on having like a guy's night or a girl's night or something like that. And my wife has done that as well, you know, where she's gone out with one of her friends, or she's gone to visit family who live like about an hour away from here, and you know she would be gone for like the night, and sure it'd be me and the dogs, you know, having the place to ourselves, but it would be weird without my wife here and my daughter here. It was just a different kind of energy. It was like something was missing. So I completely get that vibe as well. And there have been a couple times like that where, you know, I've cracked open a few extra beers or maybe poured myself a little bit of maybe like a bourbon neat or a bourbon with some whiskey cubes. I don't like to put when I do like bourbon or whiskey neat. I don't typically put two ice cubes. I have those like whiskey stones that I think work better
Hmm.
because they keep it cold and it doesn't dilute the and water down your drink. So I would have a couple
Right.
of those, and I'd be, feeling relaxed, but at the same time, it's like, man, it's just not the same without my wife and my daughter here. It's just not
Yeah.
quite the same vibe. So I completely get where you're coming from when you do have the place to yourself, and it's like, okay, we get a little bit of a break from each other, but it's like, damn, we miss each other at the same time, and you can't wait to see them again. Like I
Yeah.
can think back when I went when I was doing bachelor party stuff leading up to our wedding, and I was away for a couple days, and but we text each other, we'd be like, I miss you. It's like, I miss you too, and we just,
Hmm.
we were ready to see each other again, even though we were, I was, having a good time with the bachelor party. I wouldn't say shenanigans because it wasn't like wild and crazy or anything like that, but it
No.
was, yeah, it was a break, but at the same time, it was like, okay, I'm ready to get home too.
My wife and I, we make fun of you for that a little bit. Kind of joshingly. Her and I aren't really lovey-dovey. We
Right.
probably we bust each other's balls more than anything. I mean, we have our moments where we're close and everything, but most of the time we're busting each other's balls, and so and and you are very gushing about your wife. So whenever you talk about her, we say the love of my life. Every single it's like, oh, Brooks talking about his wife again, the love of his life.
My wife.
His-
My wife.
There it is.
yep.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I would say when my wife and I are joking around, she probably does more of the ball busting than I do. That's more for
Oh
me.
yeah, yeah. I get that vibe. She knows how to cut it up with their best of them. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's why she
Oh,
fit
for
in.
sure.
That's why she fit in so well with us. Like as soon as we met her, we were like, oh, she's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. She got along with you guys. I will say this: you and your wife are, of all my friends, you and your wife are her favorites.
I
I
will.
I
I
can
will let my wife know that.
Yeah, you two are her favorites.
Well, she's our favorite too, especially we know you never dated anyone before her, but in an alternate reality where you did date other people before her, she is by far like she just crushes them when it comes to coolness.
Yes.
They can't hold a candle to her. So
No, it's
er,
it's like it's like she's way up here and everybody else is like non-existent. So
yeah, yeah. Well, now that we got that out of the way, once because our wives do listen to this. So, yeah, there you go. We got the propping them up portion of the show, going.
oh yeah, always gotta get that in there.
Yeah, you could even say it's a little.
As a way to piggyback off last show's
Yeah,
conversation.
seeing as it is Pride Month. Did you? I saw a funny video today. I was going through our TikTok, looking at I'm always trying to promote shit on there, the show and everything. And I saw Adele on there. I guess she was doing one of her shows, and somebody said something like "Pride sucks," like they screamed it at the stage, and she went like all Cockney on him, like English Cockney. And that's how
Yeah,
you say
yeah.
that, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, "Oi!" He's like, "Hey, motherfucker, what are you saying? Hey, what are you saying that at my show for?" And I'm like, she has this like beautiful angel voice, and then she goes all Cockney, calling the guy a motherfucker. All because he said he didn't like the.
I never would have pictured that from her, but I can see that being quite hilarious. It's almost like it sounds like a switch being flipped, and, I,
Yeah.
and I'm sh- and I'm sure that there's other good examples of that I'm just drawing a blank on right now when it comes to people that might sound one way typically, and then it's like they flip a switch and sound a different way, when they're not performing.
Right.
It,
Yep.
it,
Yep. Yep.
it's all it actually it's kind of like when Ozzy Osbourne was in his prime when he was filming when he was doing the reality show with his family, where it was like he
Oh
could
yeah.
barely talk. It's like, oh, Sharon! And then all of a sudden, like, you get him to sing and he can sing just fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like the complete opposite.
Yeah. Belts out Crazy Train, no problem, but he can't fucking talk. You can't even say, pass the butter, get past the gravy train.
I know, right?
Oh
Yeah,
man.
gotta love the gotta love the celebrities. By the way, have you seen like recent pictures of Ozzy? Man, he looks like I saw a meme. It called him like like he looks like the final boss in a video game, like a gothic video game or something like that.
Oh yeah.
He just looks. It's like, dude, if he's retired, you might want to just stay retired. He looks really, really old.
Oh man. Jeez. I
I mean,
know he's been
some
sounding
people.
better.
What's that?
I know he's been sounding better, ever since
Yeah,
he yeah, I think he was on some like heavy painkillers and shit for a long time.
yeah. Some people age very, very well, and other people do not age nearly as well. Like for instance, wasn't it was it last week when we were talking about Morgan Freeman, or was it on one of the Pizain's podcasts where we were talking about Morgan Freeman?
No, it was last week we did a day in history.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Basically, he turned 87, and I'm pretty sure he's looked 87 for like the last 20 years. He's
Yeah.
barely
Yeah.
aged at all.
I got two more examples. Yeah, Tom Selleck. He's looked like he's been about, let's see, back in the day he had his Magnum PI days, right? Where he just looked 30 and he was perpetually 30 to 40 for like 30 to 40 years, it
Yeah,
seems like.
exactly.
And and now he's like almost 80. I think he's pushing 80. If he's not, maybe he might even be 80. And he doesn't look like it. He looks like he's like in his 60s, Uh fucking Tom Selleck, man. He doesn't age. And then you got Keith Richards, who shouldn't have aged. That guy should have been dead like forever ago.
Right.
Looks like a walking corpse. But that guy just keeps trucking, man. He might be a zombie for real.
Or he may have made some sort of deal with Satan himself to have
Yeah.
everlasting life.
Yep.
You,
Yep.
I was having a similar conversation with a couple other friends about celebrities that have aged in different rates. You know who's actually aged really, really well is William Shatner. I don't know if you've seen like recent pictures of
Hmm.
him.
Yeah.
Dude's
Yeah, he has.
he's 93 and he doesn't look a day above 65. There's Shatner who looks still pretty well for being 93, and then you have Clint Eastwood who's the same age and he looks like he's 187.
Yeah.
I mean, he
But
literally looks
but he looks
like the
like a
walking
he looks like a badass 187-year-old though. Like he
he
would whoop
does
your ass
though.
though.
He looks like he'd still kick your ass and then go out for
Yeah.
breakfast right afterwards.
Or at the very least, not even bother with it and just bust out like a 44 Magnum revolver, and just say, just leave me
Exactly.
alone.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. But I fucking love me some Clint Eastwood, man. Have you watched all the old movies, like all the old the Dollars trilogies, with the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all those?
I haven't seen all of those. I did a few years ago. I did watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I didn't realize how long that movie was, but it was still
Yeah.
very, very entertaining. It was great. It was just like, okay, I can see why everybody loved Clint Eastwood, especially in that era when he was really, really in his prime.
Yeah,
I
man, those were great movies. I recommend. Let's see, it's a Fistful of Dollars and a Few Dollars More, and then the last one is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I recommend watching all three of them. The first one, Fistful of Dollars, it's like real to the point. There's really no backstory or anything. It just gets right into it. I don't think it's a really long movie, if I remember correctly, and that one might be my favorite, just because it gets right into it. But yeah, man, I would recommend watching all three of those. Did you ever see The Outlaw Josie Wales?
That one I've not seen either. So I probably should do a deep dive on some of his older filmography. I mean, I have seen a
Yeah.
couple of the Dirty Harry movies.
Uh-huh.
I did see Unforgiven. That's a
Oh yeah.
classic.
That's
Yeah, I mean
great.
that's from
Yeah, I
the
need to
early
rewatch that.
90s. Yeah, that's from the
Yeah.
early 90s, but still, man, it holds up so well. That's a great movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, man. I went on it was really weird. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I just went on a Clint Eastwood binge. So like I said, I watched Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and then The Outlaw Jesse Wales, and then uh, Dirty Harry after that. And I'm telling you, man, the funny thing about the Outlaw Josie Wales is he's the same character that he is in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. You know how he's always like smoking that like hand rolled cigarette, or cigar,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But in this, it's a dip, and he's he's always spitting the dip with the mean Megan look on his face. And there's this dog, this little dog that follows him around, and he keeps spitting the dip on the dog. And
Oh, poor dog.
yeah. But that one has a little bit more story to it. I highly recommend that one. That's one of his better movies, like his earlier movies. That's one of the better ones. So highly recommend that one.
Yeah, I'll have to go on a binge of his work as well. I'm trying to think of that one. It was like one of the most recent movies that it was The Mule, I think. I wanted to watch The Mule. I never got around to it though. That was the one with him and
Oh,
Bradley Cooper, I believe. Or he was like this old like I guess
uh-huh.
drug courier, but he was like
Yeah.
can't remember the
Yeah,
premise of it, but it seemed like it was really interesting.
I don't think they suspected him because he was an old man. So he would like mule the drugs across the border. I want to say I watched it, and it must have been pretty forgettable because I don't really remember it very well. I think the last one I saw with him was Gran Torino, and that I remember at least. And did you see Gran Torino?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I did see Gran Torino. I also watched
That was a good one.
that was a good one. Million Dollar Baby was a really good one. That's also really really super sad. I watched that one
You
time
know,
and I said never again. Never again. Don't need to see it
you know
anymore.
what? I know how it ends, but I've never seen it.
If you already know
Yeah.
how it ends, don't watch. Don't do it, man.
Yeah.
It's
That's pretty
it's
much
it's
that's pretty much the whole movie, right? That's like what makes it Million Dollar Baby is the ending, right?
yeah. It's a heartbreaker, man. It really is. It's just one of those movies where it's powerful. It's so well done. It's well acted. I mean, Clint Eastwood's great in it. Hilary Swank was great in it. I think Morgan Freeman was in it as well, if my memory serves me right. I want to
Yeah.
say he was in it as well, and it was a great movie, but it's not one that I ever wanted to watch more than once after the way
Yeah.
it ended.
Hey, what is your favorite Morgan Freeman movie not called Shawshank Redemption?
Favorite Morgan Freeman movie?
I'll tell you what.
Hmm.
You think about it. I'll tell you mine.
Okay.
Set 7. That's my favorite.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's yeah.
Yeah.
That's a classic. That's an excellent choice. I probably would have gone 7, but since you've already gone 7, this one's gonna be kind of out of left field, but
All right,
kind of
wait. Let me
strange.
let me guess it. Let me guess it.
Okay.
Okay. Is it that Robin Hood movie?
It is not you mean Prince of Thieves
You're
with
right.
him and
Yeah.
Kevin Costner?
Yeah. Okay. That wasn't that
Not
one. I was thinking it might be that
no,
one.
it wasn't that one. It wasn't that one. I actually liked him a lot in Bruce Almighty. That was what I was gonna say.
Yeah, yeah, as God, yeah, he's
Yeah,
good
I
in
mean,
that.
it just it works. He just played the role so well. He had such like a grace and elegance to it, but he was also very funny. You know, it was
Yeah,
very and the way he played it so straight and deadpan, and it was just like, he had those moments where he was kind of giving Jim Carrey a piece of his mind, but at the same time he knew when to kind of dial it back and hit him with some humor. The whole like seven finger trick. It was just that was just one of the more memorable performances of his that really came to mind when I think of movies of his outside of Shawshank Redemption. Because let's face it, everybody loves
yeah,
Shawshank Redemption. Everybody's seen that movie. It's
right.
it's almost like you have to kind of go, like you said, pick something besides that one when you're thinking of favorite
Yeah,
Morgan Freeman movie.
yep, yep. And I'm surprised Tim Robbins wasn't a bigger star after that. Like he was the main character in that. He was, huge in that movie. And then I mean, he's had a lot of other roles that are starring roles, but I don't know, maybe he just, shot a shot and that's like the peak that he made. He climbed Mount Everest with Shawshank and just everything else was just like, you know, fucking I don't
Well,
know.
you have to remember. I don't think Shawshank was like
After
a
that.
massive box office hit, if my memory serves me right. I know it was a decent hit. Like it had a decent showing in theaters, but it was one of those movies that it really kind of became a cult classic. Not even a cult
Uh-huh.
classic. It just became one of those movies that was even more popular with home video and VHS, DVDs, and Blu-ray and all that stuff over time. I think that's where it really kind of developed its following. And so that could be maybe why it wasn't why maybe part of why Tim Robbins didn't get like a bigger role, because it wasn't like this huge. I don't remember it being a huge box office smash. I might have to actually
Uh-huh.
look that up. But you made you made the saying that he kind of maybe shot a shot with that movie. You know who else kind of reminds me of was Ray Liotta, rest in peace, by the
Oh
way,
yeah. Yeah.
with Goodfellas.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can't even see anything else that he did. Like he had like small roles in television shows. And then I think his last thing he did was that Sopranos spin-off movie that I heard was terrible. I never saw it.
I didn't
He
either.
Yeah, he was like the main gangster in that. Yeah, he started to do some things towards the end of his life. Like I saw him, I'm like, hey, there's fucking Ray Liotta. And but yeah, you're right, exactly right. Goodfellas, great fucking movie. He's the main character,
Yep.
and nothing really after that. Nothing of note at least.
Yeah, he had a really good role in there's a movie that Sylvester Stallone made in the late 90s. I want to say it was like 97, I want to say, called Copland, that also
Oh
had
yeah,
him, Ray Liotta, Harvey Keitel, a couple other people in it. And that was a pretty good movie, and that was he had a pretty good role in that one as well. But overall, like Goodfellas was really his peak when it came to overall performances. He actually, I will say this, he was pretty good as Johnny Depp's dad in Blow. He had a really, really solid performance in that role as well, even though it was
see,
a smaller role.
yeah, see, like I love that movie Blow. I don't even remember Ray Liotta being in it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Because
yeah,
that movie was all about Johnny Depp and Penelope Cruz. Those two stole the show in that
yeah,
movie.
yep, yep, yep.
By the way,
Um,
I just looked it up about Shawshank. Um, this says Shawshank had a budget of $25 million. It made 28.7 million domestically, 29.3 million worldwide during its initial run. However, after a theatrical re-release and international takings, the film's box office gross increased to $73.3 million. So it
huh,
wasn't a huge box office draw, but it's just one of those movies that people liked it. There was word of mouth, and it just kind of became one of those movies that I think everybody rented back in the day when, when there were video stores and Blockbuster was around. And it was like, hey, like it's Friday night, let's go grab a movie. Oh, there's Shawshank. I heard this was good. Let's
yeah,
give it a shot. And I think that's
Yeah.
probably where they really made a lot of money from it, was in terms of like the home video market.
Right. Right. Um, there's something I've kind of wanted to get you guys' take on. Like I get a little bit political in my daily Pizain podcast stuff. And this kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right now. Um, when I say the word woke, I think people's ears like turn off, and mine do too. I think it's like an overused term. It gets thrown around a lot, especially by the conservative side.
Yeah.
So if somebody is even just a little bit central to left, as soon as they hear the term woke, they just stop listening. But having said all of that, do you like kind of notice some things, especially kind of like, I don't know, like almost like it's kind of attacked geek culture, if you want to even say it? Things like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, like that. There's this weird kind of inclusive, I don't even want to call it an agenda, but just it's taken something that we've kind of knew as one thing and trying to make it something else. Is that just me, or is that something that you're starting to kind of notice as well?
I've kind of noticed it with certain things and certain franchises. And for instance, I will use the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power show that's on Amazon. I'll use that as a good example because I've always been a big Lord of the Rings fan. So I'll kind of dive into that a little bit. Basically, when Amazon, I think when they got the rights, well, they didn't get the full rights to all of the Lord of the Rings lore. So I mean, they kind of had to, kind of take what they could get and make a show based off of that. But my issue with that show is not necessarily that there was a bit more of a diverse cast. I didn't really have an issue with that per se. For me, my problem with it was kind of kind of just going off on their own little take on the show. Like basically kind of I don't want to say butchering it, but they really kind of took some liberties with it. Like there's things in the timeline that are all out of whack and out of order. There's just things that didn't happen in the book. Like for instance, Rings of Power is based in the second age of Middle Earth, which is about probably 2,500 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And so and a lot of that was written down in the Silmarillion, which for those not familiar is basically Tolkien's book of Genesis of Middle Earth. Basically
Did
how
you read
Middle Earth
that?
was. I got through most of it. It's a tough read. It almost reads like a history textbook. I mean,
Hmm.
it's kind of like a history textbook meets the book of Genesis in terms of how it talks about the creation of Middle Earth, how it things kind of led to the first age and then the second age, and it goes into like really the elves and what they did. It talks about the downfall of Numenor, which personally I always thought after reading, especially the downfall of Numenor, that section of the book, I was always thinking, man, that would make a great TV series. And then when I found out that Numenor was going to be in Rings of Power, I was like, yes, this is great. And then when I saw it, it was very, very disappointing. It was just because they didn't really follow it, the source material, like they could have. I know that they didn't have all the access to all the lore and all of Tolkien's notes and his son's notes and everything
Was that
else.
the Sea Town? Like,
Numenor was basically they were like they're basically an island. It's like this big island
yeah,
out in the sea.
yeah, that's
It,
that.
it's
Yeah.
it's very it was inspired by the story of Atlantis, and I think having seen like the Numenorians in the show, it was just so disappointing. They just looked like normal dudes. Because I get, from having read, parts of the Silmarillion and read some of these other Lord of the Rings text and stuff like that, like the Numenorians were like right up there with the elves, in terms of power,
Okay.
in terms of, like their lifespan. They were basically, of all the tribes of men on Earth, they were by far the greatest in terms of their intellect, in terms of their fighting skill, their ability, their way of life, in terms of how they kind of how they were able to build a society. And they had some help from the elves, but at the same time they kind of grew in their own way. And they also lived, the average lifespan was like 200-300 years. They, on average, the average Numenorian was like 6'4", and many of them were over 7 feet tall. Whereas in the show, they just looked like normal dudes. They just looked like
Hmm.
normal dudes that were really, really arrogant and snobby and stuck up. And it was just the way that was portrayed. I was like, that was kind of a letdown for me. And so, yeah,
Right.
sorry if I'm going on a whole Lord of the Rings nerd tangent, but that's just one of those
No,
things
that's cool, man.
that I had to get off my chest a little bit, because I'm really debating on if I want to watch the second season, because the first season had its moments, but it was also had its times where it was just really, really disappointing and, you know, just kind of different than what's portrayed in the Silmarillion.
Right. Yeah, like I never read the okay, like probably okay, let me do a flashback into young Wizane the Pizain here. The very first book, like real novel I ever read was like Hercules, his entire, story from beginning to end. Then after that, the second like real book I ever read was The Hobbit, and then it was the entire Lord of the Rings, 1, 2, and 3, those books. I never got into the Silmarillion or whatever the fuck you call it. I can never say it. I've seen it written down so many times I can never say it.
Right.
Um, but knowing how the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit was when I watched that show, um, man, it was just so disappointing. All the way from what's her name, the female elf main character,
Gladriel.
Gladriel. I knew it started with a G. Okay, like I always knew her as like this, almost like a mage type of elf. Like she wasn't this badass warrior sword wielding, could like the most, not even just a world badass sword wielder, like the most badass ever. No, that's not what she was. She was like this, like kind of almost like a Gandalf-y kind of character, but not quite Gandalf. She had like mystical powers. So when I
She's
saw her on
very
the show,
powerful.
right, exactly. So when I saw her on the show and she's just like, wielding a sword the entire time, I'm like, okay, whatever. And then they had you said you didn't mind the whole integrating like races and everything like that, and I really don't either. But I mean, to me, if there's an elf, the elves should all be white, because there is another type of elf called dark elves that aren't white, they're black. And there's this whole thing with fantasy where there is like a divide and there is like conflict between the normal high elves. I don't say normal, just the high elves and the dark elves. And they could have done this whole, if they want to make up their own shit like they did for the entire series anyway, they could have done a whole thing with that, a conflict
Yeah.
with that. And then, see, this is my point with the whole quotation marks woke thing, is it's like they shoehorn all this integration, all this diversity, when they could still have the diversity, but they could do it in such a better way where things are a conflict on opposite sides, where they come together and unify to overcome a greater threat, something like that. That is so
Yeah.
much better than just saying, "Oh yeah, no, there's always black elves. You guys didn't notice? Yeah, they're always there." you know?
Yeah, or maybe they could have just said, like you said, "Hey, here's a different group of elves," or something like that. And it's just, I think it's almost like they're just trying too hard to shoehorn it in there and just cram it in. It's like let it let it just kind of evolve. And the thing is, I think there's this feeling now, because especially when it comes to stories, and even when it comes to music and stuff like that, and how people want to go back and just change things. But it's when you think about Lord of the Rings, like, you have to think about when Tolkien wrote this, it was back in the early 1900s. I mean, he
Yeah.
was, it was, you have to think about his inspirations and where he's from. And I mean, he's kind of going by what he grew up with. It's timeless in a way, but it's also kind of a product of his time. And everybody wants to go back and just retroactively change things. And it's like, just let stuff be, create new stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to just take old stuff and it's like, oh, we have to, make everything super diverse. Just leave that alone and create some new stuff. It's okay. Like, it's almost like Hollywood and like all the movies and stuff now, it's like it's all this, it's just not creative enough to me. I mean, there's just so many movies now, it's like all superhero movies, or it's all just, I don't know, it's just not as creative and different as it
Hmm.
was, say, back in the 90s and even like the 2000s. I mean, I
Yeah.
think Hollywood's just really run out of ideas, and it's kind of disappointing when you really think about it.
Yeah, for real, man. I mean, there is a ton of material out there. There are books on books on books of material of things to do where you don't have to take something that is classic and complete, do this DEI uh, bullshit with it. It's ridiculous. And I mean, of course, there's a little bit of a double standard out there because nobody would ever take Black Panther and make. There's a joke online where they take Black Panther and they replace him with Ryan Gosling, and they say, yeah, there's all sorts of, and it usually has racist overtones with it as well. But nobody would ever do that. Is my point. You know,
Right.
and they wouldn't do that with any race. They wouldn't take Black Panther and replace it with uh, a Hispanic person or a Chinese person or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, it's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. There is a set lore of things. It's just the way it is. It was a product of its time. You don't need to change it, but you can use it as inspiration to make your own thing. Have you seen Zack Snyder's new thing on Netflix? It is called shit. I can't remember the name of it right now. Give me 2 seconds. I'll look it up. Yeah, give me a little bit of
Sure,
delaying.
sure. It's you have the Jeopardy music. I'm gonna look it up as well, because because I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm trying to remember exactly what it is, because is it comic related?
It's called Moon. Rebel Moon. Have you seen them?
Rebel
There's
Moon.
two movies. Yeah. Have you
Yeah,
seen either of them?
no, I have not. I just looked it up right now.
Okay. So I recommend checking them out. They're not the greatest movies, but they're entertaining. They're good. And he's making like this whole big like epic out of it. It's like a Star Wars meets the Seven Samurai meets the you know you you know the whole thing with oh god, what was the one with the Western that's based off the Seven Samurai? The
The Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, Magnificent Seven. It's like that kind of thing. It's like Magnificent Seven meets Star Wars. Um, it's as a diverse cast. Snyder has just created it. It's Zack Snyder just created it. It definitely has those same cinematography as um, 300. That whole
Yeah.
slow motion action thingy, and
Kind of film
but
noir type look to it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, no, no, no. It's all in color and everything. I'm just talking about like
Like
the
the slow mo
action
stuff.
is slow mo. Yeah, you got that slow mo action
Okay.
epicness to it and everything. And it starts off small. just like Star Wars, it starts off small town, or Luke was on this isolated place, and then next thing you know, his world just gets huge, kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's kind of that. It does that. It's a small farm town, is what everything starts off, but the empire, if you want to call them, comes to the small farm town, and then the world gets way big after that. Without spoiling it, I'm not trying to spoil it. Is basically what I'm doing. But
Okay.
my
And this
point,
is and it's
my
on
point,
Netflix, right?
yeah, it's on Netflix, and there's 2 movies now. So check them both out. They're like I said, they're entertaining, and it's what he did. He took inspiration from classic things, the Seven Samurai, the Magnificent Seven, Star Wars, and he made his own thing with it. And it's kind of cool. Fucking more people do that shit.
Yeah, well, and you know who else is that way is George R. R. Martin with the Game of Thrones books and TV show and everything. I mean, I'm sure he got a lot of inspiration, as a lot of fantasy writers did, from Tolkien with Lord of the Rings, but
Yeah.
he created his own, universe with its own history and culture, and and there's a bunch of dragons and magic and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of realistic fighting and political intrigue and backstabbing and betrayal, and he kind of made that all his own. So I mean, he
Yeah.
deserves a lot of credit for kind of creating something that was, I'm sure that had inspiration from Tolkien, but also inspiration from history. There's some just historical events that inspired stuff that happened in Game of Thrones. And of course,
Yeah.
I had to mention Game of Thrones, of course, with the second season of House of the Dragon returning, I think, a week from tomorrow, as of
That's
the
cool.
so I need to reactivate my HBO subscription so I can at least watch the second season of that, and then deactivate it once that season's done.
If you want to do it that way, I got some websites you can go to if you want to, Brooks. But
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
we won't talk about that on the air.
Wait, what? I have no idea what you're talking
Shut the
about.
fuck up, kid.
I tell you what,
Uh,
man, with House of Dragon, um, I was not impressed for the first couple of episodes. I thought it was kind of like, where what are they getting at with this? But I stuck with it because I love, I read all the Game of Thrones books before the shows even came out. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna stick with this, and it got good. I liked it. By the end of the season, I was just like, okay, well, shit's about to go down. With everything that happened. Uh, so yeah, I'm pretty stoked for the new season that's going to be coming up soon.
Yeah, and I think at first, I think what threw some people off was the big time jumps in that show. Like, you had those big gaps of time in between each episode where it was like months and then years. And at first it was kind of weird, it was kind of jarring, but once you kind of figured out who was who and what was going on, it really it settled into a nice groove, and a lot of crazy shit went down. There was a lot of action. There was a lot of there were some pretty memorable scenes. I mean, the scene with was it King Viserys, where he's like very old and decrepit and ill, and he's like stumbling down the hallway to get to his throne, but he's just like, no, I'm gonna make it, and it's just like, man, that like that scene kind of hit pretty hard. So I mean, it did have some pretty iconic moments that kind of helped lay the groundwork for things, and I think season 2 is going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be too. Like we were saying, especially how it ended. It's like, well, all that tension that's been building up year after year, like you said, with all the time skips and episode after episode, has finally come to a head, and there is going to be a reckoning after what happened that last episode of that last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that was when the shit kind of hit the fan, and it really set things up for season 2. Whereas there was a lot of, like you said, a lot of tension, a lot of build up in season 1. I think season 2 is just going to be nonstop fighting, chaos, dragons, things burning. Just a
Yeah.
lot of there's going to be a lot of stuff just happening, especially probably in the first. I would say it might be the opposite of season 2. I could see it where it just starts off like a bat out of hell for the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then it kind of slows down a little bit as the season goes on, and then slowly builds back up again to maybe build up for a season 3 if they do that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we'll see about that. Apparently, I didn't. There's also a Silmarillion. Say it, Brooks. What's the name of that book?
Silmarillion.
There's a Silmarillion of Lord of the or Game of Thrones as well. And it goes through the entire history of everything that happened pre Game of Thrones. And what we're witnessing right now is a very, very small part of that book. Like it's like literally a couple of chapters. I think they've taken some liberties, honestly, on the whole thing. So
Well, wasn't
if
there
they
wasn't
wanted,
there a full? Oh, God, sorry.
I was just gonna say, if they wanted to do other seasons and kind of wrap this one up, after this season, they have a ton of material to work with.
Well, I think that wasn't there a book called House of the Dragon that was like a prequel book that this particular series is based on?
Uh, I am going off of what other people have told me, so I don't really know. House of Dragon might be their entire history, and this portion of it is just a small part of that book.
Okay.
Brooks is Googling it right now, so
Yep,
I'm gonna
I'm
get
pulling up
the old Google machine.
the old Google machine.
So while Brooks is doing that, I'm going to give a little bit of delaying with some funny soundboard material that I don't know. What else? Wait, did you find it, Brooks?
Wow.
Yeah, it says yeah, the House of the Dragon book is based on a book that George R. Martin wrote called Fire and Blood.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it is based on one book. It says although originally planned for publication after the completion of the series, Martin revealed his intent to publish the history in 2 volumes as the material had grown too large. The first volume was released on November 20th, 2018. That's according to Wikipedia.
Right. So Fire and Blood kind of deals with the entire house of Targaryen. And it's like thousands of years. 300 years before Game of Thrones. Yeah, this book is about the history of the Targaryens, the only family of dragon lords to survive the doom of Valyria. And their tale begins with Aegon the Conqueror. So it's like their entire history. They got a lot of stuff that they go through. This is just one portion of it. So basically what that's all I was saying is that if they decided they wanted to end this one of it, there's a lot more they could do with it.
Yeah, there's plenty of room for other spin-offs and other series.
Well, Jon Snow's coming out too.
That's true. I'm just wondering when the next book in the actual series is going to get published, because that's become a point of contention for people online and Game of Thrones fans and internet nerds, where it's like, is he actually going to finish publishing this next book? Is the saga actually going to end? That kind of thing.
No.
Because I mean, we all know how the show itself ended, where they kind of had to branch out on their own without any source material, and we saw how that turned out. So
yeah, I finished reading those books years and years and years ago. He's not coming out with a new one, man. And there's like so much difference. Like if you watch the show, when Jon Snow died in the show, that's where the books ended. Like we never saw him come back to life. We knew he was gonna. Yeah, we knew he was gonna come back to life. Like there was too much backstory and too much hinting that he was an actual Targaryen and everything like that. So yes, and they had set that up with, when Caitlin Stark died, she got her throat slit at the Red Wedding.
Yep.
Well, in the books, there was another character that would, and I think they touched on it in the show too. There's a character that would die, and then he'd be brought back to life, and then he would die, and he'd be brought back to life. I think the Hound met up with him at one time. Do you remember
Barrick,
that in
I
the
think it's
show?
Barrick Dundarian or something like that. I
Yes,
can't remember his.
yes, him. So in the show, in the book, same thing with him. He gave his ability to come back to life and everything to Caitlin Stark whenever he saw that she died. They found her.
Oh.
They found her in a river, completely dead, throat slit. Like kind of deteriorating a little bit. And he was like really loyal to House Stark, so he decided I'm just going to give up my eternal life thingy to her. And then she comes back to life and she becomes Lady Stoneheart, which is pretty on the nose. Her heart has become stone because of
Yeah.
everybody and to her, everyone she knows, everyone she loved is dead. She thinks Arya's dead. She thinks everyone, Sansa, is like, she thinks everybody's dead. So she becomes this like vindictive, like zombie-ish Caitlyn Stark lady. And she somehow gets Brienne of Tarth to at some point she had allayed what's it called when you give her fealty to Caitlyn Stark at some point when she was still alive.
Right.
Yeah, she called her on that. She said, either I'm gonna kill you right now, or you go kill Jaime Lannister. So they had that whole romance thing, right? Her and
Oh yeah,
Brianna
I
Tarth,
remember that.
him and Brianna
Yep.
Tarth. So she's forcing her to go kill Jaime in the book, and that's where that leads off.
Ooh,
So you don't know
okay.
what happens there. There's like so much like open story shit that he left in the books. There's a whole nother Targaryen, like a fake Targaryen child out there somewhere that they don't even touch on in the shows. Like he's never going to finish it, man, because I think his finish was the show because he had a huge hand in the writing of that. And I don't know, man. I think when everybody kind of shit on his ending, he doesn't know what to do now with the books.
And I also remember reading, didn't Dorne kind of get a raw deal in the show, whereas in the books they were like very, very important? I remember hearing and reading stuff about this as well. Like I've yet to
Yeah.
get through I've yet to really dive into the Game of Thrones books, but I just remember reading some stuff about like people talking about how Dorne got kind of a raw deal in the show.
Right. Yeah. So Dorne, the kind of crippled guy who ran Dorne after um, the one guy died, the Viper. When he
Mhm.
fought, yeah, that happened like in the books too. When he fought the Mountain and died, and then his brother, also he like ran the country. The crippled guy. No, there was like that was another one of those things where they took liberties with like the sand serpents or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, they were badasses and they were there, but they weren't this whole usurping kind of, clan of women or anything. No, the guy was like, he was this sit and wait, patient, but you knew he had a plan. That's where he got kind of hosed in the show. It's like, oh, we got tired of waiting on his plan, so we just killed him.
Yeah.
In the book, you can see him, he's like weaving his web. And it's not quite on the level of Littlefinger. It's definitely a more patient game, long game he's playing. But everybody wanted to see that come to fruition. And that was still like what's going to happen there when the books ended too. You don't know yet. The show decided to say, well, whatever, fuck it, we're going to kill him.
Yeah, just because they feel like, I guess they felt like, well, it's not gonna, or people aren't gonna have a, maybe they thought people weren't gonna have a long enough attention span with it and not be able to
Yeah.
kind of really follow along. And I don't know. It sounds like something that could have been developed well over the course of several seasons, but it sounds like maybe the showrunners kind of lost their patience with it and decided, oh, we're just gonna make these guys, you know, guys and gals minor characters.
Yeah.
That's just one thing I remember reading about, or and stuff I've seen online about differences between the books and the show itself, and that was one group that kind of got hosed when it came to what actually happened in the show, which is where a
Right.
lot of people, I would say the majority of people have is how they consume Game of Thrones was seeing the show. I mean, I'm one of those people as well, although I would like to dive into the books at some point, but I'm not quite sure when that's when that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say the only other big major difference between the show and the books is Sansa ending up with what's his name? Uh the really evil dude, the bastard guy.
Oh, Ramsey?
At the book Ramsay. Yeah. So in the books, she doesn't end up with him. There is a false Sansa that ends up with him. So he claims Winterfell by saying he married Sansa, but it's really like a fake look-alike Sansa. And he ends up like fucking that chick up, because he's a weirdo sicko.
Yeah.
This whole time, that whole time, Sansa is actually at the Vale with Littlefinger, which they had in the show, right?
Right. I
Uh,
remember that.
but that's going on at the same time as what Ramsay marrying the fake Sansa, instead of it happening after she went to the Vale, and then what I mean.
Yeah, and
So
then
and then that
she and the real Sansa ended up in the show with Ramsey until
right.
the Starks were able to reclaim Winterfell.
Right. Yeah. And in the book, she's still in the Vale. So we don't know. He could have done that later, maybe like had her take, because I think he ends up killing the fake Sansa or something, being a sicko or something like that. I don't really remember. It's been a long time since I read the books. But um, other than that, they did a really good job adapting it up to a point. And then when they started doing their own thing, you could tell there was a big nosedive in the show. It definitely, like when they were beyond the wall and they were doing that big
Yeah.
fight, and then like out of nowhere, what should have taken like what weeks, to get from point A to point B, they teleported somehow. you know,
Yeah. I mean, it was
yeah,
just like there's so many weird loose ends that just didn't get tied up, or ways that they could have handled things a little bit differently that could have been a lot more smoothly. And it was almost like once they ran out of source material, they were like Ricky Bobby. They were like, I don't know what to do with my hands. That was kind of what happened with the showrunners once they got through the actual source material from the books. I think one of my biggest things with, especially with the last season, was how they kind of made Daenerys, her, like, I guess her heel turn, so to speak. While like they kind of hinted at it and were kind of somewhat building up to it, if you were really paying attention, it was almost like they kind of did it too quickly and it was too rushed in that last season. I felt like they could have kind of developed that a little bit more over time if they'd taken a few more episodes, and I think it could have really made that complete and more powerful if they had really just not tried to rush it. That was probably one of
yeah.
my biggest problems that I had with the last season of Game of Thrones, was how they
Oh yeah,
kind of rushed her turn from wanting to just kind of take over Westeros and lead it her own way to, it was almost like, oh shit, now she's a tyrant. Now she's burning King's Landing to the ground on a whim.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That whole thing could have been done. I don't think anybody had a disagreement with her turning into the like her what was it, her grandfather that was the
Yeah.
crazy one. Yeah,
Or her dad.
I don't
I
think
think it was her
anybody had
dad.
her dad, right? Nobody had an issue with that. It was the fact that it was just so sudden. It was just like a complete personality flip out of nowhere. Instead of
Yeah.
like, instead of like giving you a little bit of foreshadowing along the way the entire time. Um, there was always this thing like I'm never gonna be like my dad kind of bullshit, but they
Right, I
never
remember
really
that.
showed. Yeah, they never really showed that with her. They showed her being like a stern but fair ruler. Like sometimes she would just kill people, but they deserved it. It's
Like the
like she would
slave
be harsh.
masters.
Right. She was harsh when she needed to be harsh, but she was never harsh to people who didn't deserve it. And then out of
Yeah.
nowhere, that last season, she was just all like, okay, whatever, fuck them all. I'm going to kill them all and blah, blah, blah. And nah, man, they should have along the way showed her like killing like an innocent person, like maybe start off like accidentally killing an innocent person. And then it just snowballs from there over a
Or
series.
maybe
How many seasons were there? Like 7?
8 seasons total.
8. They had 8 seasons to build that up, and they decide on the very last fucking season that they're just going to do that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean they could have, or what they could have done as well was in the moment when they're finally attacking King's Landing and she's on the back of Drogon flying around and knocking down some of the I guess the big bows that were on the like kind of lined up around King's Landing on the edges where she's knocking those
The
down. And then she
the
kind of
ballistas or the
the
scorpions.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. And she
Yeah,
gets that moment where she pauses and the city has rung the bells in surrender. They're like saying, "Hey, we're done. Like we give up. Like you got the dragon. We surrender." And I think instead of just showing her mean mugging and getting like all real super pissed before she burns everything down, I think what they could have done was maybe have her like kind of flashback and remember things like
yeah,
remembering certain things that happened in previous seasons and just to kind of like really flash back on that. And it's almost like having that where you can actually see the rage and the anger build up to that point. It's like, okay, I get why she's about to snap. Maybe something like
right.
that could have been more effective.
Yeah, yeah. Oh well, I don't know. They definitely blew it that last season. I think that's why they're doing a lot of these spin-offs. They're trying to make up for it. I think the whole
Yeah.
Jon Snow spin-off is going to be like a whole rewriting of the ending. That's pretty much what or they're just going to, milk that cash cow is what they're going to do with that one.
Or maybe
So,
they'll actually see the prophecy with him get fulfilled. Maybe we'll see
right.
something like that. I don't know. Like you said, I could see it being a way for them to kind of look and say, "Hey, we screwed up season 8. We gotta we gotta make things right somehow." So
Yeah.
maybe this is it, and maybe it'll actually be worth a damn. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. It's a long time coming though if they do.
I mean, it's been 5
So,
years since season 8 came out.
man, really. Jeez. It didn't seem like it seems longer, honestly.
I
Huh.
think when you think of like the whole series in totality, it feels that way. Just because the
Right.
first
Yeah.
season came out in what 2011.
Yeah. Yeah, you got 5 plus 8 there. So yeah, there you go. It takes a while to have a show come out, and then when it's gone for a while, you don't think about when it started. So
Then you look back on it, and I find myself doing that with shows. Some of my favorite shows, like for instance, one of my favorites was of course Breaking Bad, and that started what
uh-huh.
2009. I was just thinking about the other day, like that show started in 2009. And I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember that being on the air like it was yesterday. Or
Yep.
another good example would be Sons of Anarchy. I mean, Sons of Anarchy started in 2008 and went for 6 or 7 years, and it finally ended in 2014. And gosh, it's been off the air for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And then both of those are well, let's see. Breaking Bad had that terrible movie. Was it El Camino?
I actually
Uh
didn't mind that movie. I actually thought it was
it was
decent.
it was just unnecessary in my book. They didn't need to do it. It was just all like nostalgia, for what was left behind. And so that was the whole thing.
I was gonna say it's like it brought some closure though.
I guess. Yeah. I guess it did bring some closure. It was just to me it was like unnecessary, but it wasn't to your point though, it wasn't a terrible movie. I might have said that earlier. I don't know. I've been drinking tonight, but as far as as far as money grabs go from a popular TV show, it wasn't the worst one. And then the other one, what was the other show you said?
Oh, Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, Sons of Anarchy. Like, Sons of Anarchy was a fun show,
It was.
and then they ended it the way they should have ended it. I was happy with that ending.
Same.
And then they came out with Mayans. And did anybody watch Mayans? I tried to watch that first season, and it was just bad.
I actually I stuck it out through the entire run of the show. It
Did
was
you like it?
it was okay. It had its moments. I did not like the ending. I thought that they could have done the ending a little bit differently. There were certain things in the way it ended that I think could have been done a lot better, and it got a little bit sloppy, and it kind of left you. It was to me, it as satisfying as Sons of Anarchy's ending was. Mayan's ending was equally unsatisfying. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. And now they're coming out with a new show with his son, aren't they?
Which character's son?
I'm sorry. Now they're coming out with a show with Jax's son.
Really? Oh wow.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they are. You tell me how shocking that is while I look it up, Brooks.
I mean, I kind of figured that maybe there'd be room for one more Sons of Anarchy or Mayans spinoff in a way, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like that's the thing now is to do spinoffs because I mean Breaking Bad did it with Better Call Saul, which I'll be honest with you, I got through 3.5, 4 seasons of Better Call Saul, and I gave up on it. It just wasn't. There just wasn't enough like interesting things happening in that show. It was too slow. Whereas Breaking Bad, every like a few times a season, had those holy shit moments where were just left you breathless at the end. You were like, oh my gosh, I got to see what happens next. Where kind of leaves you on that
Uh-huh.
little bit of a gut punch, a little bit of a cliffhanger. I got none of that with Better Call Saul, so I never finished that show up.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't either. I knew that the last season came out, and I had actually ended up watching a lot of those seasons. I saw him evolve into, his whole Saul persona. And then the very maybe it was the last two seasons. I forgot what happened, Like I forgot what the entire premise was. I tried watching recaps. I didn't remember any of the characters. I know like some of the main characters died like they do in every, Breaking Bad type of show. But yeah, I agree. It was I don't know, for a lot of people love that show. And he just never captured that whole Saul, character that he was in Breaking Bad for me. It's like he tried to be too sympathetic. And it's just like, no, man, I really don't care about all these other side characters, your woman and this guy who screwed you over. And they harped on all that shit too much. It's like, I want to see you be scumbag Saul,
Yeah.
that's the character I love.
Yeah, I like what exactly like where was the turning point finally? It took too long I think to get to that point and I just kind of checked out by then. Cuz really the only characters I found interesting from Better Call Saul were of course Saul himself and Mike Ehrmantraut. Those were the only two characters that I really
Yeah.
found to be interesting from Better Call Saul and they were both really good in Breaking Bad. I mean, I feel like Mike was probably one of the more underrated characters in any television show. I mean, that guy there's a lot of nuance and a lot of layers to that character, and that's one thing that I did like about Better Call Saul was it kind of shows what made him tick and a lot of his motivations for why he did what he did.
I don't know, man. While we're on shows, did you ever see Barry?
I have not seen Barry. That's the one with Bill Hader, correct?
Barry is fantastic, man. That is a great show from beginning to end. My wife
My
My
wife.
wife.
didn't like it as much as I did. But I personally loved it, man. There are some characters that are hilarious, a really dark humor, a lot of super dark humor. It gets like super serious. It'll be like funny, and then it gets like super serious. Uh, just the entire time, it's like this big anxiety fest, at the same time. Uh, I love that show. Great show, man. They ended it in a way that's fitting for the show. Yeah, definitely recommend that one, man. Check that one out. I don't want to give out too much on that one, but it's good. It's a good one. Check it out, man.
Speaking of great shows that also didn't have endings or had endings that I wasn't a big fan of, what did you think of the way Ozark ended? Did you ever see Ozark?
Oh yeah, I watched all of Ozark. Let me think about Ozark for a second. Yeah, that was a pretty fitting ending for it. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
wasn't a huge fan of the ending, and my wife and I were both in agreement on that, where we were both kind of left where it was like, okay, it's not surprising, but it's still kind of disappointing. It's like it had to end that way.
yeah.
I'll just say I don't want to spoil it for anybody that maybe hasn't seen it yet, but
Oh, go ahead. Me
there's
and you have seen it, so fuck them.
fair enough. Fuck them. Well, okay. Well, I'll just say spoiler alert. If you are listening, you haven't seen Ozark, you might want to mute it, turn it down for the next I don't know, minute or so. But my wife and I were both quite upset
My
that
wife.
my wife that the character of Wendy did not get her comeuppance. She did not get what she deserved. We were waiting for her to kind of get hers, and she never did.
Um, so my problem with it was a series of events. Her cousin getting with the old lady who ran the heroin farm. That never should have happened. That was really fucking weird, you
Yeah,
know.
that was
And that
gross.
and that led to him getting shot and killed because of the heroin lady,
Yep.
which caused Wendy to go off the deep end, which caused her demise later on, I get what they were trying to do there with a whole, domino effect of things happening with that. I thought the dominoes could have been set up a little better. It would have made the whole thing with Wendy a little bit more palatable. If her cousin wasn't such a fucking stupid dumbass marrying a trashy heroin farm lady, I I love I do I do love what they did with the wife, the blonde wife. Um, I like her whole I don't know, just connivingness, um, and then the fact that basically the bad guys win at the end.
Yeah.
That's I like that. I like how all that ended. It should have ended that way. It's either going to end that way or they're all going to die. That's the only thing.
Yeah, pretty
So
much. I mean, I was kind of I was expecting a lot more. I mean, there was enough. I mean, there was death in the show, but I was expecting more like main characters to really die, like somebody in the family to get it. That's what I was kind of expecting to happen. That didn't
yeah,
happen. I mean, there was
yeah.
still there was still a fair amount of characters that ended up getting killed, but I think it was that we when we were watching it, we're just like it's like why couldn't she get it?
I think that's the point, though.
Yeah, that's true.
There we go.
I
Yeah,
can see that.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I was okay with that. Like I said, we kind of walked through it there. You know what I didn't like and what I did like. I think the fact that people don't like the fact that his wife ended up making it to the end is what kind of makes the ending good.
Okay, I mean, I'm
So,
I'm slowly coming around to that.
yeah.
I can see your point. I mean, I know my initial feel, or I know my initial feeling was, it's like, why didn't she, get what she should have had coming to her at the end? But like you said, though, the good guys don't always win, and sometimes evil just unfortunately prevails.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, they're like, they were just like trying to survive the entire show. And then by the
Yeah.
end of it, it's like, well, they're trying to not only survive, but they're not really good people either.
No,
So,
they're definitely. I mean, the main characters in that story are not exactly the most upstanding people. They're definitely there's a lot of. It's one of those shows where there's a lot of moral gray area. Well, I wouldn't even say
oh
gray
yeah,
area. It was they're not great people. We'll just put it that way.
no,
I
definitely
mean I
not,
mean, you
definitely
could
not.
say that with same with Breaking Bad, same with Sons of Anarchy, where these are not good people, but it's just like, okay, these are the people, the bad people that we enjoy watching because we're invested in their journeys. So we're
Right.
kind of rooting for them in that way.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah. We've become invested in their entire story, their entire it's kind of weird, man. You watch these shows and they're all fake. It's all make believe, but you still become emotionally invested in, their characters. If they do it well, you're
Yes,
emotionally
definitely.
invested in what they stand for, who they are, and everything like that. And so when you see these characters die, it's like it pisses you off, it's like knowing that that's it's all make believe is about the only thing that can console you through it.
I mean, it was that way. I think my the way I view shows changed forever with Game of Thrones. I mean, just when the way that they so easily killed off main characters. I think it was the end of that first season where Ned Stark loses his head, and I was thinking, wow, they're killing off a main character in the first season. It's gonna be
Yeah,
that kind of show. Okay, all right.
yeah. Have you checked out Mayor of Kingstown?
That is another one that I need to kind of dive into. That one looks pretty good.
It's good. It's good. Uh, Especially the first season's good. I think they're on season 3 now. I want to say. Actually,
They're
Littlefinger is in season 2. Oh, we're watching the new season now. Uh, Littlefinger is in that show, and that's the reason why I brought it up. And it's pretty good, man. There's portions. Let's see, a lot of shit happens, like from beginning to end. A lot of shit happens, but a lot of it is fucking Jeremy Renner driving from place to place because he's like the mayor, the unofficial mayor of Kingstown, So he has it in with the gangsters, he has it in with the cops, he has it in with everybody, He's like he basically tries to keep the peace with everyone. That's his whole big deal. And yeah, it's a lot of it's just him driving from place to place and then people calling him while he's driving to the next place to put out a fire. And then he gets a new fire with the phone call that he's getting to go put out a different fire. So if you if you watch the show, it's like a lot of the same visuals of just him driving from place to place, but there's a lot of like crazy shit that happens too. So it's definitely worth watching. It's a good show. I like it. I like it.
That's on Paramount Network, right? Or Paramount
Yeah, it's on
Plus?
Paramount. Yep, it's on Paramount Plus. Surprisingly, Paramount Plus. So I would never pay for more streaming services than like Netflix and Amazon Prime, just because I have Amazon Prime for the delivery bullshit anyway. So I get that, the shows for that. Um, and then Hulu is like my cable replacement. Those are like the ones I pay
And
for. Any of the other ones I either find on the internet uh, using means that I will not discuss, or my parent or my parents use that they bought the streaming service and I just steal their password. And it's Paramount Plus is one of those. They got a lot of good stuff, man. They have all the Comedy Central stuff. They have we watch Jon Stewart. He's on like once a week on Daily Show now, so we'll just watch his once a week deal. And then a lot of good shows like I was just saying with Mayor Kingstown, Blue Bloods. We we got obsessed with Blue Bloods. It's not a great show. I don't recommend it, but it's one of those like bingey shows you can watch with your wife.
It's one of those network shows that, it's kind of follows the same formula, but I mean, it's like a good safe show where it's just like, hey, we know it's going to happen, but it's entertaining. I would
Yeah.
say, our equivalent here is is also on CBS. It's the FBI shows. I mean,
There's a million of them. Yeah.
yeah, what's going to happen, but at the same time, they're entertaining enough. You get kind of invested in some of the characters. You know what's going to happen, but hey, it all works out in the end, and we enjoy them. So that's kind of our that's like one of our mutual group of shows that my wife and I both enjoy watching. Because I
Yeah.
will say this, I've introduced her to a couple shows. Like I introduced her to Ozark and I
Hmm.
introduced her to The Last of Us. And she was just
Yeah.
like, your shows are always so stressful. I'm always on the edge of my seat. I get anxiety watching your shows. I was like, but they're
Yeah.
so fucking good though. They're great shows.
Yeah. Last of Us, I liked, I don't like the fact that they made Ron Swanson.
I will
But
say
that
this though.
episode was pretty good.
The episode was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal episode. It was just they just punched you right in the face with it though, with what they were
Yeah.
going with.
Yeah. I've been told for years, man, that Ron Swanson buries his gold in his backyard and he eats steak raw and he will order the entire breakfast menu. Did you hear me, son? I don't mean half of it. I mean the entire breakfast menu and everything like that. And then The Last of Us comes out and he is
I tell you what, that shows you the range that Nick Offerman has as an actor though. I mean, to be
yeah.
able to pull off those two completely opposite characters, but he did it so damn well. So I mean, kudos to him for being able to pull both of those roles off very, very well. So yeah, he deserves a lot of props for that. You know what?
Yeah.
Another show that my wife and I both enjoy is that actually got me into was Yellowstone. I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen
Oh yeah.
Yellowstone?
Dude, I've seen them all, dude. We are fucking obsessed with Yellowstone. Yeah. Beth and I'm Rip, so
Yeah, yeah, that show is. I haven't seen the spin-offs, but the main
I've
show
seen
is.
them all.
Oh, have
Yeah.
you?
Oh yeah, dude. We love them all, man. They're all great. They really are. Check them all out. The uh the spin-off that shows the origin of the entire family is a good one. And then they have one that's like 50 years after that or something like that.
Yeah,
40
there's
years after that.
1880. There's 1883, and then there's
Yeah.
1923, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's another one that's probably coming out soon as well. So
Yeah, they said they're doing another season of 1883 and watch the show. It seems unnecessary to me, but watch the show. And then 1923 definitely needs another season because that ends on a cliffhanger. So they have
oh
to have
wow,
another
okay.
season of that. Yeah. It's yeah, man, they're good, man. And then Yellowstone itself, the last season was was good. I like to see how it ended on like a happy note, which makes me nervous for the next season. I feel like we're going to get a whole Game of Thrones going with the Yellowstone show. But
It
what
could
I
be
was
something
most
like
worried,
that.
yeah, what I was most worried about was something happened to Beth or Rip, because Rip is like the prime candidate to die off, if you ask me. Like, if you need a main character to die off, like before they end the show, like last season style, Rip would be the one that I would think would happen. Which it
Oh
sucks.
yeah,
He's like
that
my
would.
favorite. Yeah, he's like my favorite character. But then my wife
My wife.
was telling me that now they're doing a spin-off show with Beth and Rip, and it's going to have I guess Matthew McConaughey's in it. I know he's taken over for Kevin Costner. So if they're going to do a spin-off show, I guess they're going to live. So somebody's going to have to die. Probably Kevin Costner if he's not coming back. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
because
I don't know.
that's been the big thing, is whether or not he even is going to come back, or if he's getting killed off. Which, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up kind of, if they kill his character off. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all. But yeah, you mentioned, like, what if Rip died? Like, that would be a gut punch death right there. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's, when you think of like gut punch TV deaths, God, that would be heartbreaking if he
Yeah,
were to
like when
go.
Opie died.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm getting borderline PTSD just thinking about that episode, man. That
Yeah.
was that
Yeah.
was a hard episode to watch when he got it. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Rip would be like the same deal. And Beth would just go crazy and like would just start killing everybody. It's
Yeah,
probably
she
Jamie
would go.
first. It'd probably be his fault. So
Yeah, she would go on like this epic killing spree.
yeah. Hey, you saw Interstellar, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I just saw it for the first time like a month ago. I've never seen it before. And yeah, great movie. I understand the hype now. It's one of those movies that my wife
My wife.
never wanted to see because it was like everything she hates, space and time, jumping, and she hates all that shit. So Jamie was in that. He was like the first person to get killed.
I don't remember him in that movie. Then again,
You
of course, I wasn't familiar with him at that time.
Yeah. Do you remember when they went to that first planet and then the waves came and it killed that guy? Like
Oh
they
yeah,
got into
yeah.
this. That was Jamie.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So me, the fact that I've seen Yellowstone and then I saw Interstellar after that, I was like, hey, there's Jamie. And hey, I was glad to
Nice.
see him get killed off.
Yeah, Interstellar was great, but it wasn't my favorite Christopher Nolan movie though. That, to this day, it's for me it's still Inception. I could s- I could still watch Inception over and over again. That movie is just
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Inception's really good. I like Memento. That's a good one.
I've
I'm pretty
never
sure that
seen
was
Memento.
Christopher Nolan. You've never seen Memento?
I've never seen
Oh,
Memento,
dude.
yeah.
Dude, it's like the whole entire movie is backwards. Like they start the movie from the ending and they work their way back to the beginning. It's really good,
Okay.
man. It's a good movie. It's like it basically put him on the map. I'm pretty sure that's his movie, Christopher Nolan. I think that was his like first like I don't
I'm
know,
loo- look
critically
I'm
acclaimed
look
movie.
I'm looking it up on IMDb right now.
All right, I'm gonna feel
Uh,
foolish if it wasn't Christopher Nolan. I'm pretty sure it was him.
I think it is, but I'm trying to.
Yeah.
And if where do they have the director listed? Yep, it was Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. So it was really good. I believe I want to say he before that he had a movie called Pi, like 3.1.4 3.14 or whatever, like that Pi.
I
Um
think you're right on that one as well.
I want to
Time
say
to
that was
time to
his
bust out the filmography. You know what was actually a pretty good movie of his as well? Did you see Tenet?
Tenet. Yes, I did see Tenet. Refresh me the premise. I know I saw it.
Tenet was where it was basically it was it's like a spy movie, but it was like almost like alternate, like time traveling, like
Oh,
timelines.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It had the guy from Game of Thrones in it, right?
Um, I don't
Or am I
which
thinking of
one.
something else?
No. It had Robert Pattinson. It also had John David Washington as the main character, as the protagonist.
Okay, no,
Um,
I did not see Tenet.
okay, 'cause I'm trying to see if there's anybody else in Tenet that I recognize.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It had the dude who was in Ballers, John David Washington, I think.
Yeah, he was the main character.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He's been in a lot of stuff lately. He's kind of made a name for himself.
Yep, Denzel's kid.
That's true. Yeah, I always forget about that. Yeah, Denzel's kid's in that. Or he's doing a lot of things for himself.
Yeah, I'm going through
But
Christopher Nolan's filmography right now. I haven't seen Dunkirk. I heard Dunkirk was really good though.
yeah, I haven't seen that one either.
And of course
Yeah, he had all his,
Oppenheimer.
yeah, I know we didn't finish Oppenheimer. We got about halfway through, and my wife,
My wife.
she 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 made a good point. She was like, they're trying to make these nerdy scientists too cool for school, like they're these sex addicts and everything like that. And uh the best part of Oppenheimer is you got to see Black Widow's sister's boobies in it.
Oh,
Uh,
it's all about the boobs.
yeah, yeah. The first thing I do now, man, like when I see like a when I see a character on a show I'm watching, especially if they have big boobs, the first thing I do is like, well, have they done any nudity? And 9 times out of 10, they have done nudity. Like
Really?
almost every woman in Hollywood has done nudity. Like it's ridiculous. I'm watching Criminal Minds, and there's this, you know, one detective that's been on it for like a shit ton of seasons, and she has these big boobies. So I look her up. Lo and behold, she's shown the boobies off in another movie.
Probably some lesser known film before she got famous.
Yeah, yeah, that's how they get all of them, man. We could go back on the whole Harvey Weinstein topic again now, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, oh man. But eh, I don't know, man. I don't know. Hollywood's one big debaucherous
Cesspool.
clusterfuck, cesspool, sex trafficking, sex for favors. They use Harvey Weinstein as a scapegoat. I mean, proper scapegoat. He did it, but still
Yeah.
a scapegoat for what everybody else does. But hey, they're all rich, so I guess that's what they pay for. It's like being
Yeah,
an
that's
expensive
that's just a
hooker.
it's just a place that'll chew you up and spit you out.
Yep, yep. Hey, do you like Kurt Angle?
Oh, who doesn't love Kurt Angle? Kurt Angle's great, man.
Truth be told, I'm not a very big fan of the black people.
How about now?
Wait, what? Is that a deep fake or is that real?
I think that was when he was on WWE. They're trying to make him a heel, but
Oh, okay.
Truth be told, I'm not a very big fan of the black people.
Kurt Angle, shame on you. Have you seen him lately?
No, I have not actually.
Well, they call him Perk Angle, right? Because all the pain pills that he was on.
Yeah,
Uh,
because he was addicted to those for a while.
oh yeah, yeah. He's. Did you hear him on Joe Rogan recently? It's probably
Hmm.
like a couple months ago.
That was probably I imagine that was probably a pretty entertaining listen though.
Yeah, it was pretty good. They had Hulk Hogan on, and then right after they had Kurt Angle on, and Joe Rogan wanted him on because he had such an impressive wrestling pedigree, and he talked about how he was approached by the UFC to basically fight, in the UFC, but he decided not to because he broke his neck in the Olympics and everything like that. He won a gold medal with a broken neck. And
Yeah.
then he never really got it properly taken care of. And he did the whole WWE thing. And then he was like older. And then the UFC wanted to come in. And he almost did it. And then he decided not to. And he said, I'm so glad I didn't because my neck was still fucked up. And I was an older man. And, they would have mopped the floor with me. I would have looked foolish. But, yeah. But yeah, he talked about how many pain pills he took a day, man. It was like something ridiculous, like 50. And he said he would just shop for him. He'd go from doctor to doctor, back in the day
And
when you could do, that's what.
And that's the thing with wrestlers too, is that, I mean, have you watched, how much of the Dark Side of the Ring series have you seen? Have you
I
seen any of
watched,
those?
yeah, I watched a lot of the first season. The one with Bruiser Brody was like really shocking. I never knew that story. So that was crazy.
Yeah, that
But
one
yeah,
was sad.
I watched up until the Benoit one. And then I kind of got out of it after that because I kind of knew the whole Benoit story anyway. And that was just like a depressing reminder of all that shit.
Yeah, I've seen every episode of every season of it so far. It's one of those shows that I've been hooked on was Dark Side of the Ring, even though I haven't
Uh-huh.
really watched wrestling in 20 years. But it's just cool to it's very interesting to see these like these stories because it's like there's a lot of nostalgia and there's like drama behind the scenes. So it's always interesting to hear all these stories from like people that we watched wrestling when we were younger.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kurt Angle's story would make for a hell of a Dark Side of the Ring episode.
I'm surprised they haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Because there've been some
Who was
there's been some pretty interesting episodes besides like the Benoit one. I mean, there have been a lot of really, really good episodes of
the
that show.
the Von Erichs thing was like fucking crazy, man. That was
That-
like sad and just crazy. It's like a lot of people were like because the dad, his whole heel gimmick was being a Nazi. And they were trying to say that it was just like karma for him being a Nazi, pretty much. I was like, no, there's not enough karma in the world for that. That was just tragic. That, like, how do you even describe what happened to that family,
Yeah, I mean, only one of them's left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kevin Von Erich's the only one that's still living. I mean, it's like all of his brothers died of either from drugs or suicide.
Well, drugs, suicide, accidents. Like his youngest
Yeah.
brother, when they were all kids, died, from being electrocuted. And then then what? I want to say one of them died. One of them died of a fucking weird infection overseas in Japan.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was supposedly like the star one too. And then the other ones, yeah, suicide and drugs. Oof, that's a tragic shit, man. That's something I don't know. I don't even know how to describe that one. It's like, how do
Yeah,
you explain all of that?
Yeah, and I know there's a movie made about them that came out this past year, The Iron Claw, that was supposedly really,
Yeah.
really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
still
had
want
Zac Efron, I think, was in it.
Yep, he was in that. That's one that I've need to add to my list to see because I've heard good things about that movie.
Yeah, I'm sure it's good. I know the story, but I'll probably check that out. Speaking of like wrestling kind of movies, shows, did you ever see Heels?
I've heard of it, but I've not watched it.
It's good, man.
It's on
Main
Stars, right?
characters. Yeah, it was, and it got canceled, and then now Netflix picked it up, so it's going to come back on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, as a good show, man, the main character is the guy from Arrow. What's his name? Something to Steve Amell, I think is his name. And then the other main character, his brother, is Bjorn Ironside from Vikings. I know you watch Vikings,
Oh,
right?
yes, Vikings was well, I would say the first like 4 seasons of Vikings was good, and then it kind of tailed off the last couple seasons,
Right.
but I saw
Oh
all
yeah.
of Vikings.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know Bjorn. Uh
Mhm.
yeah, he's the other main character.
Okay.
And it's really good, man. They're like a small independent wrestling organization out of Georgia. And they have this rivalry with a slightly bigger, uh, more of a financial backing independent wrestling circuit in the panhandle of Florida. And
Okay.
that's just part of the story. There's a whole bunch of other stuff too. And it's good, man. It's a good story. And then I think like CM Punk has been in it. They've had like wrestlers, like real wrestlers in it too. Um, Definitely worth checking out if you can find it.
Is it still active or did they end their run?
They ended the run, and then, but it wasn't long ago. Like I think it was like sometime last year was the last season they had, and it looked like it was going to get canceled, and then like I said, Netflix picked it up. So Netflix is going to do the new season when it comes out.
Well, if it's on Netflix, I mean, I've never had Stars, but of course I've got Netflix, so
Yeah,
I'll have to check that one out soon.
yeah. I'm sure when it comes closer to when the season comes out, they'll probably have all the other seasons on there as well. You know, to so everybody can catch up on everything else before the new seasons comes out.
Yeah, that one sounds pretty intriguing, so I'll have to give that one a shot.
Right. Yep. Oh man. Let's see, Brooks. How long have we been going for? It's shit. It's quarter after 12, so we've been at least going for like an hour 15 at the very minimum. So
I think we've probably been going an hour 45. I think
you
we've been
think?
going for a while. Or close to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, how those drinks
Wow.
treating you?
Oh, I stopped. I After that last drink, I stopped. So yeah, feeling pretty good. Probably not gonna feel too good tomorrow. And hopefully the kid doesn't wake up too early.
Yeah,
So
fingers
well,
crossed there. Good luck.
yeah, fingers crossed. He's starting preschool in August. That's 2 months away. So there's a side of me that's excited about it because I'll have my days back. And then there's a side of me that's terrified because, well, he's going to be in school. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep, mine's in daycare right now, and she she's had this thing lately where she doesn't want to get like she hates being dropped off, and she freaks out and starts crying when we leave, and then we get word that like 5 minutes later she's fine. But
Right.
lately, that's like that's one thing we're trying to figure out is how can we get her back to enjoying being dropped off again? Because for the longest time she was good with being dropped off at daycare. It was great, and now it's like she gets all mad and upset when we leave, like she wants her mom and dad. So
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. You know what my son did today? I'm sitting on the couch. Well, so in the mornings, when I first wake him up, I give him, a sippy cup full of milk. And then while he's doing that, I'm feeding the dog. Normally, my wife would be doing this stuff,
My wife.
but she's out of town, so I'm doing it. And so I'll basically, after he's done with his sippy cup, I'll give him a tablet with his favorite shows on YouTube, which is normally like Bluey and uh, a bunch of other ones too, Miss Rachel and Blippy and all that crap. And I'll distract him with that while I, take care of dishes and whatever else. Breakfast, I need to eat breakfast and have my coffee. I take care of you gotta take care of yourself too. It can't all be about everybody, you do what you can for your family, but at some point you got to take care of yourself as well. It's
Of
important
course.
so you can be there.
Absolutely.
So you can be there for your family. Yeah. So I'm sitting on the couch, just finishing up my coffee. I set the cup down, and he climbs up on the couch. He's just now starting to like give me multi-word sentences, you know? Before it was just like mama, dada, blue, his body parts, elbow, nose, things like that. Now he's starting to say I hungry or I water, you know, whatever, you know. Food me, you know, he's figuring it out.
Yeah, he's putting it together.
Yeah, so he climbs up on the couch with me. He puts his head into my like kind of my nook of my arm, you know, and he goes, "Dada, I love you." And I fucking started bawling like a baby.
Oh, man.
There was only one other time he's ever said love you, and it was like months ago. Because he's a funny kid like that, man. He'll say something once and then he won't say it again, you know. So
Right.
one other time he told me that. Like I was like, you know, I'll do my good nights with him, and then I'll hand him off to, and then I'll say good night, I love you, and I'll walk out of the room, and then she'll do his good night, her good nights with him. So I did that once, and he goes, I love you. He said it back to me. But this is like the first time where he just like, I didn't prompt him at all. He just came up to me, leaned into me, and said, I love you, Dad. I was just like, oh, like, I love you too. I love you forever. Don't ever fucking forget it, kid.
Yeah, my daughter, she's getting to the point where, you know, she like I'll come home and she'll see me she'll go dada, you know, and she just runs right up to me and wants me to pick her up, and now she'll give me a kiss or she'll give me a hug, and like the best is when she puts her head on my shoulder and just like holds on. Like those are the best cuddles with the little one, is when they do that,
Oh
man.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah. You and I are very fortunate at these points in our life to, you know, have our children where we about waited until you can't wait any longer that we
Yeah,
decided to do it.
very
But
true.
yeah, yeah. So, but I don't know, man. It's really cool. It's really cool. But well, we need to wrap this bitch up, Brooks. And
Yeah, we've been going for a while now.
yeah, yeah. So why don't we do a day in history? It's my favorite thing to do. Whenever I'm doing my Pizain's podcast Monday through Friday, you can catch those. It's the day in history. So let's go through one. You down with that?
Let's do it.
All right. Architect Frank Lloyd Wright was born in 1867. Former First Lady Barbara Bush, born in 1925, which would make her, what, 199 if she was still alive? Am I
That would
doing
be
my
correct.
math right there? Okay.
Yep.
George Orwell's 1984, published in 1949. Did you ever read 1984?
I did not, but I'm very familiar with the story and I know enough about it.
Yeah. It is the longest. Well, it's not long. It's actually a kind of short book, but it is the most boring fucking book for like the first 3/4 of it, and then the last quarter of it's like really fucking good. So I
It's like,
understand they do. They're setting up the entire story for the ending, you know, and
yeah,
everything. But and then the message is great, you know. Everybody 1984 is everything. Like, you know, whatever Trump. Oh, Trump, that's straight out of 1984. And then you got Biden, that's straight out of 1984. Everybody
yeah.
1984 is everything, you know.
Everybody has made that reference at some point or another.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things that's like you probably should read it, but it's kind of overrated, honestly. But and then
It's one of those stories that's it was like underrated and just rated properly, and then it got talked about so much that, like you said, I guess it kind of became overrated in a way just because it's referenced so often.
yeah, I actually heard for those types of books, Brave New World is actually better. So I need to check that one out. I need to read that one. But well, moving on. James Earl Ray arrested in London for the assassination of Martin Luther King in 1968. And then we have a quote from Mr. George Orwell from 1984. Perhaps one did not want to be loved so much as to be understood. Well, I want our podcast to be loved. And even though it might not be understood, I hope one day through our word of mouths that it will be understood. That's all I got, Brooks.
Well said, my friend.
Not as philosophical as I usually am. But hey, alcohol will do that. It kills brain cells. So
Hey, it's still worked though. It still had a lot of the same vibe as Pizain's podcast, so I can get behind it. It works.
Somehow every single episode I find a way to tie the quote of the day into the podcast. I don't know how I do it, but I do it. It's like a gift. If that's my gift
Hey,
in the world, I guess I'm not doing too well, but whatever.
hey, you pull it off. I think it works just fine. And I kind of get the Morgan Freeman vibes from it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, yep. Well, let's see. Let me go. I didn't think I did through all of our pre-rolls, I guess. I really need to just record this stuff and like hit a button. But don't forget to subscribe, follow, download our podcast, Three Bozos Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And guess what, Brooks? Guess what new platform we are on now? You'll never guess.
Uh, Facebook?
Close. YouTube. We are on
Oh,
YouTube
okay.
now.
All
We have
right.
the podcast feeds go straight to YouTube. And so yeah, you can find us on all of the platforms you listen to. Like literally, if you can't find us on the platform you listen to, it's a stupid fucking platform because we're on all the good ones now. We really
Yeah.
are. And then as far as social medias goes, we're on X, TikTok, and Instagram still. I still haven't made a Facebook. I guess I'll work on that next. But yeah, follow, comment, all that good stuff. Let us know you're out there, and we really appreciate it. That's all I got, Brooks. What? Any parting words for the people?
I think I've pretty much said my piece for the evening. I think I am all set until we meet again for the next show.
Well, I am also there. I just want to say that today's episode made me say,
Wow.
and also, and then it caused a little bit of nervousness, which made my stomach go. But then my
My wife.
reminded me that not to be
Racist.
because I listened to Kurt Angle say this,
Truth be told, I'm not a very big fan of the black people.
and a lot of people would say he's
Yeah.
for that, but I would just say,
Shut the fuck up, kid.
yeah, that's what I would do. Well, thank you for
Well done.
listening. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Pizain and Brooksy Boy minus Bose. Hopefully he'll make it for next week. He found that his car restoration was more important than the podcast, but that's okay. He's been working on that
loves his
bitch for a
Hondas.
year. He does love his Hondas, and he's been working on that bitch for a year. So maybe he'll join us next time. And the three bozos will reunite, and everything will be all right.
It would be
Having said
glorious.
that, it would be glorious. And having said that, our parting words will be There ya.
See ya.